right? All of that, if you look at all how the progression of technology advanced, the communication channel still existed in a in a time lapse that requires time to be delivered to you. So something that comes out almost has, you savor it more, if that makes any sense, because you had to wait for that song to be dropped. You can't hear it anywhere but this radio station or this channel on television, whether it's the network or it's the cable. You still had to wait. There was there is a waiting moment, there's an anticipation, there's an excitement. Now it's like instant gratification because you can get it online, right? Like you can download movies that are over that on online and see it for free even while it's still playing in the movie theater. These products are being produced hasn't changed. It's how it's delivered, right? The delivery of how we used to receive it took time. That time kept getting shorter and shorter, but it was still, there was still time, right? The idea of getting radio, getting airplay, getting television spots, all that was the same. It never changed, right? Maybe the format of how you listen to your music, from a vinyl to a CD, to a cassette to a CD, that format, that hardware changed. But how you received it, when you received it, didn't change until the last 20 years. I think that impacts sort of the kind of longevity of how an artist is remembered. Sort of like what we call like fast fashion, because it's so cheap, it is so fast. You cycle it out in like, a season and you're like, I'm off to the next. And I feel like artists is like that too, right? Like with these songs, am I going to remember this song 20 years from now? And I mean, does it even matter, right? Like, are these what artists are concerned about, or they don't care that they are forgotten in like, a year or 6 months down the pipeline?
Well, I mean, see, look, that's a tricky question because, like, look, like almost 20 years ago, one hit wonder Kesha released a few hit songs, or like, okay, sorry, two hit wonder. I still remember her somehow.
Is Kesha 20 years?
I said almost. It was like 2008, 2009. So we're getting there, okay? But it's like well, okay, fine, like 15 years ago, all right? But I was like watching Shameless the other day, and like there was like they had like a remake of like TikTok playing as like the music for the show. And I'm like, oh look, Kesha, and I still remembered, right? It's not every day that I recognize songs being played in shows, but that's the one that I actually recognized. And it's just like, well, I guess some things you remember, some things you don't, right? It's like selective memory.
Yeah, I mean, like the songs from back in the day when we were that age, like I remember when I was in junior high, like all the songs that they would play at like school dances, whatever, like when I listen to them now, like it still gives me like a burst of like serotonin, like dopamine, serotonin, I don't know which one, but like, yeah, to hear those songs.
Yeah, I mean, the dopamine's where it makes you like, oh, I'm so happy to listen to this song.
Yeah, but I don't feel like, I guess it is partly nostalgia, but I don't feel sad. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm happy again.
Yeah, no, I think it's nostalgia and happiness. It's not a sadness. It's just more like I'm just thinking about like how I hear these songs. If I'm on the road and I'm listening to the radio and I'm hearing all these tracks, like before I could be listening to every single song on the radio and I could pretty much about 80% identify the artist, right? Now, I think we talked about this. Now you're listening to the radio and I can't, like, I would say about 80%, yeah, like 70-80% of the time, like I know the song, I know I've heard it all the time, I may be able to sing a little bit of it, but I will not know who the artists are. It's just that's the difference, and that to me is a little bit sad. Like that for me is sad in a sense that like, why can't I feel like something has taken over and the focus is no longer on the artist themselves.
Well, I think first of all, it's definitely like related to the way that we listen to music right now, because Nak, you were talking about Kesha. I remember like I put all her stuff in the MP3 on my way back home, so like I can only listen to Kesha, so like it holds like a special memories to me, because like I don't have access, I don't have phone, like that's around like end of elementary school, start of middle school. And like that's the only music that I listen to, so like it keep running and running, like it's just like ingrained in my mind.
Right.
And second of all is that I still think maybe because of like the way that the music was made right now, it's like the majority of them are too manufactured, because I know like they're assigned by like major labels, and it almost seems like a industry plant, like they kind of seasoned like cooked in the industry, and then it came out. It's not that like originality in their music. That's what I feel.
Yeah, everything is an industry plant these days.
Yeah.
Well, I think the music industry has certainly changed. You know, like for example, I started out in the record industry in the A&R department, and A&R stands for artist and repertoire. And that is the most crucial, that is almost like the core of a record label, because that is the backbone, right? They're the ones, the A&R guys, top major A&R guys are responsible for signing the major artist to the label, right? And they're supposed to, it's called artist and repertoire, because they're supposed to discover and sort of nurture and develop that artist to make them a hit. And it's an entire team that surrounds it. So, you know, everyone wanted to be an A&R. I accidentally fell into the A&R department. I thought I wanted to be in marketing, but I was introduced to my boss at the time, and I started interning for him, and then I ended up, you know, working full-time. But I think, you know, that idea and that concept of art, and that's when a label takes all the burdens and invest in an artist to sign them and say, here's, you know, when you hear about like 10 million or $15 million like record deals for how many records and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the company fronting the money to put an album out for artists, right? And then they would hopefully recoup all that expense that they spent through record sales. But as we know, no one buys CDs anymore. So it's, in a way, the A&R is almost, that concept has really shifted their roles, right? A lot of it, what has happened is that you have artists and their own production companies, or production companies that's finishing a product. They're producing a record in their production house, and then they try to sell it to the record labels for distribution or some sort of collab. But I don't think, you know, like record labels, their function is really just a machine to distribute and market your product, right? To be signed to those labels are great, but then, you know, what they're signing is it has to be, you know, it has to follow up by a lot of numbers and data to support that this artist is gonna make it big. Not that it wasn't done before, but before it was a much more organic, like grassroots kind of discovery. Like, okay, they follow, you know, the A&R guys go out to the clubs and to bands to, you know, to see shows and to see fan bases and all that reaction, and it got instinct of whether this artist is good or not. So nowadays it's a lot more data driven. So I think the role of an A&R guy has kind of shifted. So like artists, I think, is just, you know, a lot of it is it's a self-produced thing that you're seeing out in the market, because you don't need a label anymore to put out an album, right? Everyone can record, have a home studio for not a lot of money, and then you can just produce your own songs, produce your own album without ever having it to go through a record label. And then there's so many ways of distribution digitally that you don't have to have physical CDs, because who really has a CD player anymore? You know, yes. I mean, but you're one of the few, right? Like even I don't have a CD player here. Like, and so I think that's the challenge. And, you know, when you're signed to like a major label, you have to be, they must know that you can return a certain amount of, you know, the return of investment. They have to hit a certain percentage to be like, okay, I'm willing to put money behind this.
Also, I have a slight confession to make. The CD player in question's in my mom's basement, so I'm not really... I have one in my car. That's fine, right?
Oh, sorry, I take that back. Yes, I have a CD player in the car as well. Because it's old enough that it still has a CD player.
I actually have a funny story about that CD player. I pulled it out for one of my piano students because they were playing like this Bach convention, and I wanted to show them a recording of me playing it back when I was like younger than them, right? And they're like, "How old were you when you played this?" And I'm like, I'm like, "You'll see." And I pulled out this CD player, and they're like, "What the hell is that?" Because they were like 9 or something. They've never really seen anything like it. But then I told them it was a CD player, but it's like a CD player cassette player. So they were more confused about what the cassette is.
Cassette does, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it kind of reminds me of like, I saw this on TikTok. Basic kids right now, like when we were talking about when we were on the call, because we used to do this. Kids right now are doing this because they have never been through this era.
Yeah, I saw that. And also same with taking pictures. Like we do this, but they just do like this.
Man, I feel old. Or maybe they just never worked with a DSLR camera, man.
Yeah, or
They're
like
lost.
a digital camera.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think just these discoveries, it's great that you guys are able to go back and some of, again, like some of these stuff that are nostalgic to me, because that's the kind of stuff that I grew up, I grew up listening to. And I'm not sure if there'll be that kind of nostalgia, about like listening to like a Fiona Apple or even just stuff like System of Down, right? Like I may not know them, I may not know the music, but it's a very nostalgia feeling and a sound of an era where all of these bands are doing amazing things and that are very distinct from one over the other. Like you've got Linkin Park, you've got Rammstein, you've got Korn, you've got Green Day. They're all like in that same vein, but at the same time, they're all very distinct from each other. Like you can put them all on and you're like, okay, this is the sound of Green Day. Oh, this is the sound of Linkin Park. Like they just have a very, very specific sound. Okay, so for example, now my son loves listening to Imagine Dragon. And the other one is the other band. What is it called? Oh, shoot. Is it the Script? No, not the Script. And they both have amazing songs, but I have to think really hard to see which one is which. Because both are great, have amazing songs, but they're not, to me, that distinct enough. I mean, I still remember their names and I know their songs, but it's like if you strip away the song, the band name and just put those songs side by side to do a comparison, you can't really, you have to like think for a moment to see who's who, because to me there's not that big of a difference. And that's not denying that I like their stuff.
So I mean, is that like a problem of there being too many bands in circulation, or just is it not a priority to have an original sound at this point in time?
I mean, I think maybe it is that whole algorithm, right? Like they're producing songs and also what the bands grew up listening to too, right? Like what have they been exposed to? I mean, look, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure.
Maybe they're all inspired by the same artists. That just shows us that the music in the past generation was too good. They let everyone down the
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, But I think at the end of the day, it's fun to be able to discover, right? Like I just, I mean, I love the convenience, right? I love the convenience of the fact that I can go online and really find anything that I want. But at the same time, because I can find anything that I want, I become paralyzed by all the choices that I have. And, I mentioned this the last time, is that I've mentioned this before, like several times, is like, then I don't know what to listen to. And I always end up falling back to the comfort zone of the sound that I'm comfortable with, or that speaks more to my cup of tea. So I have to really make an extra effort to really listen, to get out of my comfort zone.
Well, apparently you know a lot about metal. You know what corn is. That's surprising to me.
I mean, I did grow up
One of
in
my mom's piano students brought up that like she wants to, learn more classical guitar. Or sorry, her guitar students said that she wants to learn more about classical guitar so that eventually she could do like corn song covers. My mom said, "What's corn?"
What's corn?
Like CORN?
No,
Okay.
KORN.
KORN.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of the bands you mentioned, I saw Rammstein last year.
You did?
They were crazy. You know what's hilarious? We got to New Jersey to go see them. Like, my girlfriend, she's obsessed with Rammstein.
Oh, really?
And,
wow.
Had
Another
the
metal
tickets.
fan.
Oh yeah, big time. Had a metal band, really. So I mean, we went to see Rammstein, and this is the craziest part about them. We went there, and we heard one of their songs going off. I'm like, oh, I guess they're playing it just to appease everyone while we wait, right? Or it's like, or did we miss the cover bands, or like the bands that are introing them? And then we realized they had no other bands playing with them. It was just them for like 3 hours.
Oh wow.
That's fun. Oh, that's fun.
So with so many hardcore fans, the whole stadium or arena in New Jersey was packed. Packed. So I guess, I mean, going back to what you said about not only just demand for different artists, right? Because there is a demand for certain artists, but I guess just right now there's so many different artists in circulation that if someone's up and coming and new, it takes something major to get the attention of the masses.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like for me, I don't see what the long game is. Of course, there's still going to be those artists that will have that building that career. But then there's an entire massive amount of team and money poured into it to really create that, to generate that longevity. And like I said, maybe they don't care, and maybe that's okay too. Maybe for them that's okay. Again, like, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just one of those observations. And I look at these new artists coming up, and I feel like there's a new one popping up that I don't know every single day. And if I'm not really paying attention and a month goes by and I feel like I've missed an entire decade of artists that I should be listening to. But look, I mean, as long as they find a channel, as long as they find a way, look, all powers to any artist that's trying to make it. But it's good that you guys are listening to so many different things. I remember I was with a colleague from the UK, and he's with he's a classical musician. He manages a chamber orchestra, and he was like, and it was at the conference in ISPA, and we did like an after party, and when we went into like a karaoke bar, and he was like, oh my God, I don't know any of these songs. I've not listened to anything but classical music. And I was shocked. And he's much younger than me. And I'm like, in a way, I was thinking to myself, that is a little sad that his world is just surrounded by classical music, and that is it.
Yeah, maybe he just didn't want to sing. He didn't know, like, Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On. You guys ever try to bust that out at karaoke?
Never did.
I mean, you could have won with that.
Anyways, I mean, look, I think this thing of sharing these music is just so interesting for me that you guys are picking stuff from, like, back in my days, and it's a good thing, right? That because you guys are curious and you guys are able to appreciate stuff that has a generational gap, right? And I think in a way, maybe the gap is getting a little bit closer and not as wide when it comes to music, the types of music that people are listening to, and whatnot. But I still want to, I think it's just continuing to encourage everyone to to continue to discover, whether it's a fast discovery or whatever discovery. At the end of the day, you know, it's an ecosystem that we live in, and we always have to try to give props and support, you know, artists who's trying to make it in this business. Yeah. Anyways, well, thank you for a really lovely, fun conversation, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.